Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. In our previous episode, we discussed the tragic story of a successful individual, a CICC employee who purchased a home at peak prices and was burdened with substantial mortgage debt. Following economic downturns and salary cuts, she was overwhelmed and tragically took her own life. Her story is a true reflection of the current state of China's economy. In this episode, we will analyze data from various angles to explore just how deep the real estate industry's bankruptcy crisis in China has become. A Chinese economist named Lao Man has addressed this issue with data. Let's first look at this table. This is a lot of data on the real estate industry listed in RMB. This is the same table but with the amounts converted to US dollars and the area measurements converted to square foot. There are a lot of numbers here and it might be a bit overwhelming at first glance, but don't worry. If you are an economist, you can take a screenshot and study it later at your leisure. Otherwise, feel free to skip this table and move on to our detailed breakdown. First, consider this chart. It shows the total area and average price of housing sales in China from 2000 to the present. According to the chart, housing sales peaked in 2021 at 1.79 billion square meters based on data registered by housing. Since 2021, sales have rapidly declined, with only 480 million square meters sold in the first half of this year, marking a 20% decrease from the same period last year. The projected total sales area for this year is about 950 million square meters, reverting to the levels seen in 2009. Regarding the average sales price, it appears to have stabilized at 10,000 yuan per square meter. However, this stability is misleading. Over the past 3 years, the contraction in house sales in third and fourth tier cities have significantly outpaced that in first and second tier cities, where housing prices are generally lower. Thus, if sales volumes in major cities also begin to drop dramatically, a deep decline in the overall average price is likely to follow. Lao Man predicts that the scale of China's real estate market sales will soon revert to the levels seen before 2008. This was also the situation before the Chinese government initiated a massive 4 trillion yuan investment plan with annual sales of around 600 million square meters. The average sales price is expected to revert to the levels prior to 2015 real estate inventory reduction initiative by the government, about 3,000 yuan per square meter. Next, let's examine the cash flow of real estate companies. The cash flow is calculated by subtracting the tax paid by real estate companies and the actual funds allocated for real estate development from the total housing sales revenue. The actual investment amounts are reported monthly by the National National Bureau of Statistics, the tax amount for real estate companies is estimated at 15% of their sales revenue, which closely aligns with the actual situation. So this table's data is calculated using this method. It is evident that since the inception of so-called housing reforms in 2000 in China, the net cash flow of real estate businesses has consistently been negative, never once turning positive. Let me explain what the so-called housing reforms mean. It involved treating houses as tradable commodities. Prior to this reform, housing was not considered a commodity but was allocated by the government to people as part of their payments. This is a distinctive feature of socialism. Facing back on the real estate sector's negative cash flow, this means that the business model of Chinese real estate developers over the past 24 years has been one of frantic borrowing to expand the scale of development. Every single penny made by these businesses has been reinvested into land acquisition and development. But this is not enough, and debt is needed to buy more land and build more houses. From 2000 to the present, each year has been marked by aggressive borrowing to scale up operations, resulting in consistently negative net cash flows. The negative cash flow for any given year reflects the total new debt incurred by the industry that year. The peak borrowing occurred between 2013 and 2015, with over 5 trillion yuan borrowed, equivalent to more than 700 billion US dollars. What does this figure signify? For example, in 2004, China's total money supply M2 grew from 110.66 trillion yuan at the start of the year to 122.84 trillion yuan by year end, marking an increase of 12.18 trillion yuan. In China's state-anchored era of credit money, all new money was generated through an increase in debt. In 2014, the debt of real estate developers alone rose by 5.7 billion, which is 46.9% of the total increase. This implies that nearly half of the new money created that year originated from the real estate sector. Hence, the aggressive borrowing by real estate developers was the primary driver behind the significant expansion of China's total monetary base. From 2010 to 2019, which was the golden decade for Chinese real estate developers, their borrowing over these 10 years accounted for 29.9% of the new money created. In the meantime, home buyers were also taking out loans to purchase homes, accumulating 49.62 trillion yuan in new loans over the decade. Together, real estate developers and home buyers contributed 94.8 trillion yuan in new loans, accounting for 62.7% of the new money created. This means that 62.7% of the new money was due to the real estate sector, not including the money generated by related industries such as construction, home appliance, renovation, landscaping, consulting, advertising, etc. Including this, the percentage is estimated to exceed 75%. After 2019, the golden decade of China's real estate ended. The borrowing capacity of ordinary citizens reached its limit, with 90% of their disposable income being spent on housing, leaving no room to sustain the real estate bubble. Consequently, despite the CCP's reluctance, it could only watch as the real estate sector steadily declined. The share of money created by real estate developers dropped from 23% in 2020 to 13% in 2022, and by the first half of 2024, it had further reduced to just 10.6%. This indicates that within just 4.5 years, real estate was no longer a cornerstone industry in China. Overall, as of this year, the debt levels of real estate developers have reverted to those seen in 2009, whereas the public debt level have only regressed to those of 2012, indicating that real estate developers are more pessimistic than the general populace. Now, let's examine the construction and completion areas over the years. Does this chart look out to you? Back in 2000, when China's housing market was just taking off, the gap between the construction and completion areas was minimal, with the construction area being appropriately 3 times that of the completion area. This ratio was normal, reflecting the typical 3-year construction cycle of a project, meaning the annual completion area was about 1/3 of the construction area, aligning with industrial standards. However, from 2009 onwards, this gap dramatically widened. After 2011, the completion area of housing stabilized at around 900 million to 1 billion square meters, representing the peak of China's construction capabilities and the management capacity of the entire industry. By 2022, the completion area had fallen to 862 million square meters due to numerous real estate developers experiencing cash flow problems, rendering them unable to cover the costs of completing projects. Following this, the CCP rolled out several policies and pressured developers to ensure projects were completed and delivered, leading to a recovery in 2023, with completion areas reaching 998 million square meters. However, in the first half of this year, the completion area was only 265 million square meters, a 21.8% drop from 339 million square meters in the same period of 2023. Based on current trends, the total completion area for this year is estimated to be around 600 million square meters. Let's now estimate the so-called pressure to ensure delivery. From 2019 to now, China has sold a total of 8.23 billion square meters of housing. but only 3.24 billion square meters have been completed since 2021. This indicates that there are still 4.99 billion square meters of sold but uncompleted housing. Assuming an average of 100 square meters per unit, this equates to about 49.9 million housing units. These are what are referred to as unfinished buildings or rotten tail projects, where you've paid for a home that will never be fully constructed. This equates to nearly 50 million households, encompassing over 100 million individuals being overwhelmed by the collapse of the real estate bubble. Even worse, for these homes, they were never live in. They need to continue to pay mortgages. What happens if they lose their jobs or face salary cut? Now look at this chart, which shows that by the end of June 2024, real estate developers will still have 6.969 billion square meters of construction area remaining. This represents the inventory held by developers accumulated over many years through substantial debts. What does this nearly 7 billion square meters of inventory represent? It equates to 930 million urban residents, each needing to purchase 7.5 square meters to absorb this surplus. However, the per capita living area for urban residents in China has already surpassed 30 square meters, reaching the standards of moderately developed countries, indicating that China no longer has a shortage of housing. It is utterly impossible for each individual to purchase an additional 7.5 square meters. Furthermore, local governments are not standing by idly. They continue to sell land use rights. In 2022, 110,000 hectares were sold, and in 2023, another 85,000 hectares. If land sales were halted, local finances could collapse overnight. Thus, the current scenario is that, on the one hand, the inventory held by real estate developers is so vast it cannot be sold off, and on the other hand, local governments, in a bid to maintain their last breath, are still frantically selling land use rights, increasing the housing supply. This absurd vicious cycle can no longer continue as of today, and even the entire monetary system is unsustainable. The next step, printing money out of thin air, might be the only solution, and the Chinese populace might soon face a crisis similar to that experienced by Venezuela. Therefore, Lao Man concluded that China's real estate industry has reached a stage of brain death, with the heart completely ceasing to beat, and now only a slight neutral response remains, where a prick might still cause a toe to twitch. This is the current state. Given that the real estate sector accounts for 25% of China's GDP and 40% of local government revenues, and that 70% of Chinese household assets are invested in housing, the total collapse of this industry poses significant questions for China's economy. what would be the implications be? Moreover, when would a financial and banking crisis sparked by the real estate sector's downfall commence? These are likely the critical issues we need to consider and confront moving forward. Well, that's all for today. Please like this video and subscribe for more. Please also visit my website at jenniferzengblog.com to sign up for a membership or make a donation. Your support helps me continue sharing the inconvenient truths. Thank you. See you next time.